This video was made purely for harm reduction and does not promote the use of drugs.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Who are you to judge an enlightened master? I've got to make this really clear. I am just here to share my perspective. This isn't an attack. I'm not trying to cause drama. I'm simply opening up the possibility that Sadhguru has misunderstood psychedelics and that it's actually quite ignorant of him to talk about this topic having no experience in it. After all, who are enlightened masters to judge psychedelics without having tried them? And who are you to judge who's right? If you're not at the level or above the level of an enlightened master, then how can you know he's right? If you haven't done the work yourself, all you have is faith. And if you criticize me from a place of faith, you are never gonna let yourself change your mind. You're gonna be stuck. Before we get started, just so you know, I'm not showing every part of his response. That would take far too long, but I'm not cutting the clip to mislead anyone or to misrepresent his views. I'm trying to be as fair as I can here. Anyways, let's get on with it.
You're attaining to clarity because of chemical usage. Life will catch up. I think you should retire then by the time they're 35.
Okay, so it's important to understand that your brain is a factory of chemicals. By chemicals, what he really means is external chemicals that the body doesn't naturally produce.
Even if it's very controlled chemical usage, athletes have been doing it for physical purposes. Some of the top US athletes have died before they're 40. Olympic gold-winning athletes have died before they're 40. Actually, in their early 30s, many of them have died.
Okay, so this statement doesn't really have anything to do with psychedelics. Many athletes are taking dangerous toxic chemicals to give them that performance boost, whereas there's a wide range of psychedelics that have so far been shown to have no toxicity and even potential beneficial effects such as neurogenesis. Them both being drugs and therefore similar is kind of nonsensical. That's like saying mosquitoes are bad, so all life is bad just because they share that similarity. A drug or a chemical is a very wide term.
Chemically infused performance, physical or mental, it is going to cost. It is just that.
Okay, so there's a few problems with this statement. One of them is, where do you draw the line? Vitamin C is a chemical. If I supplement that, is it gonna cost? He's kind of just making a statement here, but this isn't really backed up by anything. Though it's also important to know that he's not actually wrong. Yes, there will be a cost, but so what? Everything has a cost. The question isn't, is there a cost? There clearly is. The question is, do the benefits outweigh the costs?
One thing they have forgotten is the greatest chemical factory on the planet is here. The most sophisticated and complex chemical factory on the planet is here. Because you're a lousy CEO, you are seeking outside help.
Well, based on what are you saying that? What if other living beings also have really great chemical factories? I mean, so many of our medicines come from plants, so how do you know that this particular mushroom doesn't also have a really great chemical factory? Why would the human chemical factory be the best and not benefit from others? In fact, if it wasn't for other chemical factories, then we'd all be vitamin C deficient. There are many chemicals we can ingest that benefit our bodies, so how do you know if this particular class of chemicals is not one of them? Surely to make the claim that it isn't when an orange is means you must have some evidence or at least reasoning behind that, especially if that statement is in contradiction with almost all scientific studies and anecdotal reports. As a yogi who understands and teaches non-duality, his very literal teaching is that there's no difference between inside and outside, and there's no real reason why inside chemicals are any better than outside chemicals. You literally need both to survive, so it seems dogmatic to be against some outside chemicals but not others based on the fact that they're psychoactive.
If it is not organic to your system, you will pay a price, and everybody around you will pay a price.
Another point that might be worth making is about DMT. It has been scientifically proven that DMT is produced in your body. It's also in almost all plants and animals. So you could actually consider DMT an organic molecule, and therefore you kind of just contradicted your own logic. For the rest of the video, he talks a lot about weed, alcohol, cocaine, and a few other drugs. The full video is in the description if you like. He explains how you shouldn't need these drugs to be happy, and ideally you can sit still and sober and be blissed out, which I totally agree with. He talks about the physical dangers as well and how many people die or rely on substances, but none of this is really related to psychedelics. Again, chemicals come in a lot of categories. There's a massive bias with the word drug that most people haven't even considered. A drug is just a chemical that enters into the body and has a physiological effect. But first of all, that means that by definition, a drug excludes the chemicals already in your brain because they start off inside the body, which seems biased and relative. A drug to me may not be a drug to another animal or to an alien because they'll have a different brain chemistry. And vice versa, a drug to an alien might be natural to my brain. His bias seems to be mainly against psychoactive drugs, so let's talk about that. Why is a psychoactive effect inherently bad? Surely, you would be wiser if you were able to explore various ways of experiencing life as a human, over only ever experiencing one way. Surely by changing your state, you're now able to see reality from a wider perspective, because you're not trapped in one way of thinking. You're able to see life from various different angles, and that gives you a wider field of view. I think the main point he's making is that you shouldn't rely on a drug, but this is a fundamental misunderstanding of psychedelics. There is really no potential for addiction. There's little to no toxicity, and in fact, psychedelics essentially just allow you to see life from another angle or perspective. If you smoke DMT, you have a 15-minute experience and then you're back. Most people don't have this experience to have fun, they do it to learn and grow and explore consciousness. So never having had this experience, how can you denounce it as useless and invalid when there's all these anecdotal reports claiming it's literally changed their lives? It's made them better people. It's made them realize we're all one, which are the exact same teachings that you preach. Here's another interview where he talks about his non-dual experience, and the interviewer mentions he had a similar experience on psychedelics. You can guess how this went down.
So, if you take psychedelic drugs chemically, it creates a certain experience from within you. What the chemistry does is a kind of a chemical drama which in turn creates a psychological drama. That's not what I'm talking about. This is beyond the psychological. This is beyond the chemistry of who you are.
So Sadhguru has this belief that psychedelics are just chemicals causing a chemical reaction in the brain, which is somehow different to his experience of oneness, because that wasn't a chemical reaction in the brain. What he's failing to understand is that your brain is literally chemicals. He's making a claim about an experience he has no reference of. If you look at the brains of Buddhist monk meditators, they have reduced activity in the default mode network, which is what's responsible for your sense of self. Interestingly, psychedelics do the exact same thing. They reduce activity in the default mode network, often much more drastically. To denounce the experience as just chemicals despite having never had it, yet having had it with serotonin, which is also just a chemical. He seems to think that using a tool or a technology like a psychedelic substance somehow makes an awakening experience less valid. But this also has no argument. There's simply no reason why doing it sober would be more valid in any way. Doing it sober does have loads of benefits, and I'll have a video on that in the future, but why not both? Why exclude or look down on other paths as if they're inferior? When you ingest DMT, your serotonin receptors go from binding to serotonin to binding with DMT. Why would serotonin be the one true neurotransmitter that allows you to awaken, but other neurotransmitters like DMT are somehow not valid? This is why I like to preach that you shouldn't just put your faith into one spiritual teacher, because what if they're wrong? What if I'm wrong? How do you know? Have you verified it for yourself? And even if they're not wrong, which by the way, you should know that Sadhguru is enlightened, but like every other human, he has his limits. There are people more awake than him, and if you just put your faith into one guru, or even go to many gurus, you will always be stuck where they're stuck. You can never know if you chose the right guru until you reach their level. As Terence McKenna said, avoid gurus, follow plants. I don't doubt that he's right about the long-term positive change which you can get from meditation, which I've seen in myself, but my question is, why not both? After one of my acid trips, my baseline happiness almost doubled. Right now, as I read this, I'm sat here stone cold sober in absolute bliss. Every moment in my life feels magical and blissed out, as he likes to say, and I can't lie, there is no chance I'd be as happy as I am without psychedelics. I mean, I literally feel like I'm on heroin 24/7, 365. Sure, maybe I could have reached a similar state after 10 years of hardcore meditation and yoga, but here I am, not even 3 years after my first psychedelic psychedelic trip, blissed the fuck out.
How to simply sit here blissed out?
If you're still skeptical, then go ahead and read the comments under the videos I talked about today. They're in the description. And also, I'm not promoting the use of psychedelics. They're very powerful and they have their risks and should be used responsibly. I just wanted to challenge what he said because he's simply uneducated on the topic. I made this video out of love for him and for you watching this. Peace.